There are seasons where stars shine because their offense explodes. There are seasons where superstars carry teams on scoring runs that fill highlight reels. And then there are rare seasons where a player changes the feel of the game, where opponents adjust their whole strategy around him, where one stat category doesn't just lead the league. It reshapes the narrative of what defense can look like in the modern NBA. That was Dyson Daniels 2025, the year he didn't just become a steals leader. He became a force the entire league had to respect. A defender so disruptive, so relentless that he didn't just make plays, he redefined what it means to guard at the highest level. This is the story of Dyson Daniels' defensive breakthrough, from role player to elite stopper to true All-NBA contender. For years, NBA defense has been measured by blocks, rim protection, and team schemes designed to stop star scoring. But in 2025, in a league dominated by perimeter offense and three-point shooting, Daniels proved another truth. Disruption can be a weapon just as lethal as a thunderous block or a game-changing chase down. His arms were long, his anticipation sharp, and his instincts fine-tuned, and on nights when the Hawks needed a stop, he was the one who made teams think twice about entering an offense without him on the floor. Dyson Daniels' defensive rise in 2025 didn't happen overnight. The Australian guard entered the NBA as the No. 8 overall pick in the 2022 draft, spent time developing in New Orleans, and was traded to the Atlanta Hawks as part of the DeJounte Murray deal. Analysts saw potential length, athleticism, basketball, IQ, but few predicted how explosive his impact would become. But when the 2024-25 season began, it quickly became clear that something special was brewing. Daniels didn't just lead the league in one defensive category, he controlled them. Those numbers tell only part of the story. On court after court, night after night, Daniels was a menace. His 443 deflections, movements of the ball forced by his activity, were the most recorded since the stat was introduced, dwarfing the nearest competitor. He didn't just poke loose balls. He changed the rhythm of offenses, turning momentum away from opponents and toward his own team. That combination, timely steals and chaotic disruption, made him not just a statistical leader but a strategic weapon. When Daniels was on the floor, offenses hesitated, passes were second-guessed, and stars knew there was a hawk waiting to take their possession away. Let's be honest, steals aren't easy. They require more than quick hands. They require timing, anticipation, understanding tendencies, and the confidence to go after a ball without losing your assignment. Most defenders gambling for steals end up out of position. Daniels, however, blended restraint and aggression. He knew when to pounce and when to apply pressure without giving up a defensive lane. That's why his numbers weren't just big, they were efficient. His defensive impact wasn't about gambling in the stereotypical sense. It was about reading the game. Daniels defended isolation possessions at elite levels, cutting off penetration, forcing careless passes, and turning defense into offense. Opponents found that even routine plays had to be rethought with him in the lane. Statistically, he became one of a kind. In 2024-25, he joined an extremely exclusive list of players, only the fifth player in NBA history to average at least 14 points, 5 rebounds, 4 assists, and 3 steals per game in a season, joining names like Magic Johnson, Michael Jordan, Michael Ray Richardson, and Alvin Robertson. That's a rarefied group that spans decades in Hall of Famers. Yet what sets Daniels apart isn't merely the total, it is how he shifted games. On Christmas Eve 2024, he produced a career-high 8 steals in a single game, a tribute to his defensive timing and sheer instinct. Throughout the season, he had multiple games with 5 or more steals, performances typically seen only in deep defensive specialists from eras gone by. Opponents noticed too. Stars like Jalen Brunson, Jason Tatum, Donovan Mitchell, and Tyrese Halliburton, players that defenses already game plan around, suddenly had to account for Daniels not just as an on-ball defender, but as a roaming disruptor capable of snatching possessions at any moment, and the NBA took notice. Daniels wasn't merely leading the Hawks' defense, he was leading the league's conversation. He finished the season second in Defensive Player of the Year voting, narrowly behind Evan Mobley, but ahead of many other elite defenders. That is unprecedented for a guard, a position that historically hasn't dominated Defensive Player awards. On top of that, Daniels was named to the NBA All-Defensive First Team, a recognition that put him alongside elite defenders like Draymond Green, Evan Mobley, and Amen Thompson. His presence on that squad wasn't controversial, it was expected. Yet what makes Daniels' rise even more compelling is that his defensive brilliance coincided with improved all-around play. He didn't abandon offense or rebounding. In fact, he posted career highs with 14.1 points, 5.9 rebounds, and 4.4 assists per game. Those numbers represent a leap from earlier seasons and reflect a player growing into a complete star, not just a defensive specialist. That explosive season earned him the 2024-25 NBA Most Improved Player Award, an honor that acknowledged not just his meteoric rise but the depth of his transformation from role player to cornerstone talent. Two numbers from that season stand out in particular. Daniels' steals total -229 was the most in Hawks franchise history and also the highest in the NBA since Payton's legendary 1995-96 campaign. That alone cements his name in defensive lore. But even more striking was how far ahead Daniel was from the next player. He finished the season with 98 more steals than the second closest player in the league, an unprecedented margin. No player in NBA history had ever led the steals category by such an overwhelming gap. It wasn't close, it was domination. Another astonishing metric was his deflection count. Daniels' 444 total deflections remain the NBA's highest since that statistic has been recorded, leaving the next closest by a wide margin. These numbers tell a story of impact, not just volume. They show a defender altering possessions, creating chaos on every switch, and forcing opponents to account for him on every pass drive. But let's bring this into context. Average NBA guards can be very good defenders. They can contest shots, they can stick with players, they can hold their assignments. What Daniels did was different. He made defense offensive. He turned anticipation into scoring opportunities for his team. Every steal was a potential break, every deflection a chance to run the floor. That's the kind of dual-purpose defensive play that shifts momentum and changes games in ways that traditional stats sometimes fail to capture. His nickname, the Great Barrier Thief, encapsulates that blend of identity and impact. It speaks to not just his ability to take possessions, but to reshape opponents' game plans around him. One of the most undervalued aspects of Daniels' 2025 season was his consistency. Where many defenders might have big games here and there, Daniels delivered night after night. He had a 52-game regular season streak with at least one steal, the longest such streak in the league that year, and he recorded 27 games with 4 or more steals, numbers that haven't been seen since the early 1990s. And yet, even with defenses honing in on him, offensive improvements accompanied his defensive excellence. His jump in scoring, assists, and rebounding weren't secondary to his defense. They were complementary. Teams couldn't sag off him. They couldn't ignore him. That's the mark of a true all-NBA talent. Not a one-dimensional threat, but a complete one. If this breakdown of Dyson Daniels' 2025 defensive rise inspired you, hit like so more people can dig into how elite defenders reshape the game. Subscribe for deep dives into the players redefining basketball today.